It is that moment where you try to change and you're going through a lot, right? You're feeling this high of motivation that is propelling you on board to basically complete the desires and wants that you wish to aspire. As you guys know, we have to plug in one of life's, I guess, analogies, which is life is like a roller coaster. And when we look at life as like a roller coaster, we know we have our highs, but we can also dip into the lowers. And for me, I think it is important to understand that when I get to that point, it kind of provokes a bit of lack of control. I can feel kind of down and discouraged, and I can feel really overwhelmed and in turn burnt out. Sounds familiar? What if I told you that being burnt out is actually a product of something deeper? Being burnt out is actually a product of overwhelm, right? Like if we have to look at the standard model of, I guess, overwhelm and all of that, we know that it's like the glass cup that's overflowing with water. Now, what are you gonna do with that glass cup? Are you just gonna put your mouth onto the cup to try to drink the water that it's overflowing? Technically, it can be a solution, but it's inefficient, it's ineffective, and honestly quite stressful. So why don't we delve into why the cup is overflowing, as well as just how to kind of fix that problem. Let's delve deep into overwhelm and burnout. Before I begin, I think it's really important to first define what overwhelm is. Overwhelm is the psychological distress that when we feel when there's an overabundant stimuli that is becoming difficult to manage. This can be emotions, this can be environment, this can be tasks, etc., etc. I feel like there are two subsections to this really broad term, and so I guess we should talk about that, right? Because the first one is unintentional overwhelm. No, you are not going to be finding this online because I pretty much made it up. And if it exists, then cool. However, if you do search up articles about overwhelm, you will be seeing these themes occur. Unintentional overwhelm is pretty much external factors that create a huge stressor to you, things that you cannot personally control. So I feel like in a sense, the way I look at it in very simple terms is overwhelm is the response to these external factors that you cannot control. The way I kind of look at it, to be honest, is time, right? When we're in these situations, we often feel as if we're chasing after time, that time is going by way too fast. And you know, I think there is merit to that. However, time is a man-made construct, but time is based off of an empirical metric. Therefore, time is measured in an objective standpoint. It is rather our subjective emotions that we attach to time that makes us feel overwhelmed, not exactly time itself. I think that is really important because sometimes we lose sight of that. And people can be like, wow, Christine, that was so obvious. And you are right. However, there's a lot of pointers that you can get out with just this mentality alone. Number one, you understand that your mind has the power to influence your emotions and your decisions. Once again, very obvious, but when you really think about it, you understand that, hey, I'm attaching subjective emotions to time, which is not necessarily speeding up, you know, it's just there. Then I understand that, hey, I actually have power to my emotions and the reactions that I let out. And that is pivotal when you try to understand overwhelm, that it's just merely a reaction that comes out from that. So I've spoken about this in a video, I think it was episode 0 of the Reset series. I'll put the card up here. However, the point of the video was basically just saying that, hey, we may feel a lack of control, but that is okay. Because in honesty, it's our reaction that we have control in. And there are a lot of things that we can control in smaller ways that can be impactful in the long run. And so just remember that your reaction has such a huge pivotal role in the way that you go about things. And that is a way for you to kind of reframe your mindset about the unintentional overwhelm. On to the flip side is intentional overwhelm. Now, I want to tread a little carefully in this waters for a good reason. And that is because this sounds as though people are intentionally overwhelming themselves, and not exactly. Intentional overwhelm, in my opinion, really it comes from a subconscious level. Like, you don't realize you're doing it, but inadvertently you're kind of doing it for certain reasons in your mind. I feel like this is the perfect way to understand that you really need to hold the pause button. Because let's be real with ourselves, right? When we keep ourselves busy, that's kind of intentional, right? We're keeping ourselves busy, we're putting our stuff in our plate, and there are decisions that, let's be honest with each other, right? Heart to heart, that we make decisions that are sometimes not good for us, right? For example, we take on way too much tasks and all of that. But that should not just be a representation of failure. That should be a representation of something deeper. And I feel like sometimes we don't set the limits for ourselves because we don't know how to. We don't know sometimes how to say no, or we sometimes don't know how to not accommodate to other people. We also come into this case of sometimes feeling as though our problems are non-existent, and we just kind of say, okay, we can take this task. That's important to recognize, that it's not necessarily the flaw of just your character, or that life is bringing onto you, or that you're just always making mistakes, or you're just that at default. No, it's just we need to work on creating boundaries. I also think another important thing is that oftentimes when we intentionally, quote unquote intentionally, in a subconscious level of course, keep ourselves busy and become overwhelmed, it can also be kind of like a mask. It can be a mask to a lot of internal situations that we don't want to address yet. It's kind of like this distraction, right? Just music playing in our head, right? It's nice, but when you turn it off, you have other things to concentrate towards. And that's just kind of how it is. And I feel like, especially with this one, it's not necessarily a flaw. It's not necessarily an accusatory, you're doing this to yourself, because it's not. But I think that there's something deeper and that it's important to look at that. So yeah, I hope that that kind of gave you guys a little bit of an understanding of the different types of overwhelm that you may feel. Burnout, right? So as we addressed earlier, burnout is merely a product of overwhelm. But how are we able to combat burnout? And the really simple answer is there's no short-term way to cope. Now here's the thing, I'm gonna be honest with you guys that yes, you can do these certain things, maybe have a one self-care day or whatever the case may be, but long-termly, we have to understand that overwhelm and these feelings of discouragement and us kind of being in this pitfall is time for us to heal. These are signs that, hey, you need to take a pause button and take care of yourself before you go back up again. And it's okay to admit that. I think it's really, really important to just understand that because this is such an internal thing, as we've discussed before, that you shouldn't expect for things to just snapping your fingers go back up to where it was before. So I hope these tips that I talk about can be things that you can implement in your life, because that's really important, and I hope that you can at least implement it daily, if not often. So the first one obviously is self-care. Now I get it, everyone is like, oh, such a generic tip, and I get it. But the reason why I wanted to add this is because self-care, if we look at it boiling down, is intentionally doing something for yourself. And I think that's really important because that's almost kind of like one of the healers to overwhelm. When you're overwhelmed, let's be real, we don't sometimes take care of ourselves. It's really important to set some time for yourself, to really put yourself as a priority. Another quick thing that I feel like you guys can do is reflect. The reason why I love reflection, I keep saying this in a lot of my videos, but it's because there's no really wrong way to reflect. People who don't feel like crying, or like there's always like these ideas where you reflect and you fall into tears, and I'm not saying that's a wrong way either. Once again, there's no wrong way, but at the same time, for people who are not as emotional as well, like you don't need to expect yourself to be crying, and it's just your own way and specific to look at things objectively and just look back at your actions and try to heal from that. Next one is sleep, and I guess this one is a little more short term, but long termly this affects a lot of things. Sleep can really just help you in a short term, just kind of clear your head, and when you wake up you feel a little better. But overall, when you really try to prioritize sleep and get good quality sleep, that is when things change. This changes because obviously when you get good sleep for long term, it really affects your mood and your physical health, so make sure to get some sleep. The last tip that I want to say is a little bit, I guess, hard, and that is, don't turn to indifference, turn to hope. I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, this is so cringy, but hear me out. I feel like when we come into a lot of pitfalls in our life, we tend to turn to indifference. And I'm actually going to be making a video about this very soon, so I don't want to get too deep into the idea of indifference. However, I think that it is important for you to just internally understand that, hey, there is hope, and to always just linger on that even when things are hard. Because trust me, I know this sounds idealistic, but hope as a construct really is not, which I will also talk about in another video. But just hang on to that, okay? All right? Promise me that. Pinky promise. Pinky. I don't know why I did that, but pinky promise me, okay? Thank you so much for pretty much supporting these reset series. Once again, this video is really to show a realistic perspective on change, and that's what my whole series is. So yeah, I know that this is kind of a topic that not a lot of people talk about, and I understand a lot of negativity is already going around. We don't really want to talk about these things, but I feel like it's important, especially during these times, regardless if it is turbulent, to have a conversation about mental health, because through that we can actually understand our emotions and try to change out of it. I hope that this video was realistic and kind of helped you in some way and gave you a little bit of perspective. So yeah, I also want to say before, I close off this video, obviously, that I want to make sure that I give you guys authentic and not empty advices or tips, etc., etc. A lot of these things come from, me having to reflect. Obviously, this is not gonna be for everyone, but I hope that you guys know that there's someone here right now creating a video that can get past this or can get through this and can heal past this, so please have some hope as well. And with that being said, last little announcement, but I am actually hosting a Q&A, and so I want to be hosting a Q&A, so make sure to comment down below any questions that you have about change. If you need any advice too, I will be responding to them. And also, if you have questions about my channel, like future direction, etc., etc., make sure to comment those down below as well. Anywho, I do post every Sundays and every Wednesdays, so make sure to stay tuned and subscribe down below, put the post notifications on, and comment down below. With that being said, thank you so much for all the support. Please stay strong. All right, I'm gonna be signing off.